Welcome to the You Empowered podcast with your host, Justine Jetty. If you want to unlock your potential and step into the most authentic, healthiest, and happiest version of you, then you're in the right place. Each week, we'll dive into practical, evidence-based strategies for your habits, mindset, and health so you can create a life and a body you love. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the You Empowered podcast. I'm your host, Justine Jetty. And if you've ever stepped on the scale, seen a number you didn't like, and feel like your confidence just dropped like a rock, this episode is for you. I'm going to be really blunt here. Diet culture has sold women the lie and convinced women that your worth is tied to a number on a scale, and that you have to earn the right to feel good in your own skin, and that you can only be proud of yourself if the reflection in the mirror changes. Truthfully, you can pursue fat loss without it becoming your identity, and you can improve your body without making your self-worth conditional on the scale. And if you don't learn how to separate these two, you will keep riding that same emotional roller coaster, up when the scale is down, crush when it's not, no matter how hard you try. So today I'm going to be breaking down the 5 biggest signs that you're still tying your worth to your weight, even in subtle ways, and 5 practical ways to break free from that pattern without giving up your health and your fitness goals. So if you've ever said, I'll feel confident when I'm X kilos or X kilos lighter, or you've skipped events, avoided photos, or beaten yourself up for eating a donut, stay with me. This conversation might just change how you see yourself and how you approach your goals from here on out. Today's episode is to support you in separating your worth from your weight and to start to unlearn what diet culture has taught you around the weight scale and around measuring your success, and instead putting in place practical measures that are going to support you on your fat loss journey and empower you instead of minimize your progress, and instead of getting you focusing on the wrong things, which a lot of weight loss programs unfortunately do. So before I get into the practicalities of today's lesson, I wanted to share with you some heartbreaking statistics. The purpose of sharing these statistics with you is, well, if I'm honest, to help you feel a little less alone. I know when I read these statistics, I was like, oh, it's not just me. But to show you what so many women go through when it comes to the relationship they have with their bodies from a very young age. So looking at the statistics, and these have been pulled from many studies over the years, many meta-analyses and systemic reviews, the studies and the statistics show us that at just 3 years old is when a girl starts to begin to show signs of body image concerns. As young as 3 years old, which is wild. That statistic just blew my mind when I read that. By age 6, many girls already wish they were thinner. And by the ages of 6 to 12, nearly 60% of girls are worried about their weight or becoming fat. By age 13, over half of girls are unhappy with their bodies. And that rises to 78% by age 17. At 16, 1 in 3 girls struggles with an eating disorder. And by the time a woman reaches college or college age, over 91% have attempted to control their weight through dieting. On average, a woman will spend over 20 years of her life dieting. Women deserve better. We deserve to be empowered, we deserve to love our bodies, and we deserve to be given the right tools and the right understanding to love ourselves, to love our bodies, and to have a healthy relationship with food and with exercise. And that is part of the reason why I've created this academy, to really empower women to take back control of their health and fitness, and to start to do that from a place of loving themselves and loving their bodies. And I just want to share with you, because I'm willing to bet that every single woman watching this right now is on a fat loss journey. And so before we go any further, I just want to say clearly that fat loss is an absolutely valid goal. There is nothing wrong with wanting to lose weight or wanting to lose fat. Okay, this conversation isn't about making you feel bad for wanting to be leaner, stronger, and more comfortable in your body. You can absolutely do that from a place of loving yourself, though, and that is really the key differentiating factor, is wanting to change your body because you love yourself and your body, rather than wanting to change it from a place of self-hate and self-loathing. You can pursue a fat loss goal without attaching your worth to your weight. So it's not an either or situation, it's a both and an and situation. So I just wanted to share signs you're still tying your worth to your weight, even subtly. If you are still struggling with this on any level, that's okay. This is not a space for judgment or criticism. This is a space for you to honestly, with compassion, assess where you're at, and from that place be able to support yourself in a nurturing way. So these are just some of the signs that you're still struggling, you're still tying your worth to your weight, even subtly. The first is that your mood or confidence rises or falls based on that weight scale. So whether you jump on it and it tells you what you're expecting and you get like this surge of excitement and validation, or whether you step on it and it's not showing you what you want, that really impacts your mood and your confidence from that one interaction with the weight scale. So if the number goes up, you feel defeated, ashamed, or feel like you failed. If it goes down, you feel worthy, you feel successful, and perhaps even more confident with a more spring in your step in your day because of that number and what the weight scale has reflected to you. The second is that you feel guilty after eating something quote unquote bad or missing a workout. So if you ever catch yourself thinking, I've ruined everything, I'll never get there, I'm slipping up, or I feel like I'm like making a mistake here, rather than isolating the circumstance or the situation and what's happened, you create it and you make it about you being the problem, you being the mistake, it meaning something about you and your worth, as opposed to looking at the situation and being like, okay, I missed a workout today. Can I get a workout in later this week? Or, okay, I've had a donut today, or maybe I've eaten a bit more processed foods today than perhaps would have been good and optimal for my body. What can I do tomorrow to support myself? So you still feel guilty when it comes to feeling like in your mind you've missed the mark. Number three, you avoid photos, clothes, or mirrors, or events where you're not at your quote unquote goal weight. Okay, so do you feel like you need to earn the right to show up fully in your life by being leaner first? Maybe you say things to yourself where you're like, I'll book the holiday when I'm at X weight, or I'll start taking photos of myself when I get to this number on the weight scale. Or maybe I'll explore that side of my closet when I'm at X amount of weight, just as an example. Number four, you think reaching a certain weight will finally make you feel confident, happy, and enough. So you really tie your sense of identity and happiness and contentment with the number that you see on the scale. So do you believe that you'll feel proud of yourself only when you hit a certain weight or size? That's a good question to ask yourself, is will I only feel proud of myself when I hit a certain weight and size, rather than being proud of myself now for my effort and all the healthy habits that I'm putting in place for myself and doing for myself and giving back to myself in that way? Number five, you struggle to feel good about yourself or your progress unless it's reflected in your body. So if someone shares to you, oh my gosh, like, Christine, you've been going to the gym 3 times a week this week. You're looking, so strong. Those deadlifts this morning looked amazing. Or I feel like you're glowing, like you got so much energy. You kind of just dismiss those compliments because in your mind you're like, yeah, but the scale didn't show me what I wanted to this morning, so none of that's relevant. Or, you don't look at the non-scale victories. You tend to overlook or kind of bypass the non-scale victories that you're having, whether that's getting better quality sleep, better digestion, less cravings, more nourishment, more energy, more up and go. Those things all seem to get sidelined and dismissed because all you seem to be fixated on. And so the other metrics in your mind don't count, essentially, unless they show up in the mirror or on the scale. So here's the really potent truth around this. And if you leave with one thing that you're taking away from this lesson, I want it to be this. Diet culture and society has taught women that a number on a scale is more important than how you feel in your body and what your body is capable of doing. I'm going to say that again. Diet culture and society has taught you that a number on a scale is more important than how you feel in your body and what your body is capable of doing. And so with that in mind, I want to give you 5 practical ways you can start to disconnect your worth from your weight as you're on this fat loss journey and as you're putting things in place to nourish your body and strengthen your body and have better health and fitness. These are the 5 practical ways you can start to shift away from connecting your worth to your weight. So the first is to measure progress through multiple lenses, not just the scale. And from a data perspective, only using the scale as a data point is not giving you the full story. Our weight fluctuates, especially as women, on a daily basis. When I wake up in the morning and I jump on the scale and then I go to the bathroom, I could lose a kilo just in those five minutes from jumping on the scale and then going to the toilet and then jumping back on the scale. Or if I go to the gym and come back, if I weigh myself before I go to the gym versus after, I could have gained 1.5 kilos just from that. If I drank more water that day or had more carbs that day, my muscle cells are going to be holding more water, or my body's going to be holding more water retention. If I happen to be on my menstrual cycle, there's so many elements in our body that impact our weight. And so to rely on the weight scale to validate your fat loss progress is setting yourself up for heartbreak, not because you're not making progress, but you're relying on a metric that's flimsy, that's fickle, that's not actually giving you the full picture of your progress. So because the weight scale isn't giving you that full picture, it's important that you also zoom out and use other metrics of your progress, like, do your clothes feel looser? If you're using measurements to measure your waist and your hip measurements, or you can even use different measurements if you want to measure your bicep or your thigh, those are all, and using a measuring tape to do that. Measuring your waist, hip, thigh, and arm measurements are a really good way to really show that change in body composition before that's reflected in your clothing or in the mirror. But do your clothes feel looser? Is there something in your closet that you couldn't wear a month ago and now it feels like you can fit into it? Really good example to shift away from the weight scale and also see that progress with fat loss. Do you notice that you're stronger in your workouts? Whether you're doing a bodyweight workout, maybe you go to Pilates classes. For example, last week, if you were doing a plank, could you only hold a plank for, say, 30 seconds? But this week in your Pilates class, you held it for 45 seconds. Or if you went to the gym last week and you were doing a shoulder press and you were only doing it with a 5 kilo weight, but this week you went back and with the same workout, you did a 6 kilo shoulder press. Those are all metrics that you are making progress and you're building strength and you're building fitness. Your energy levels. If you were to just think back to where you were a month ago, are your energy levels better? Do you wake up with even just 5% more energy now than you did a month ago? Do you feel that your energy is more stable throughout the day, where you were maybe having a month ago or before you started this journey, whenever that was, maybe before you started this journey, you were having really severe energy crashes and a lot of cravings throughout the day, and you were struggling to concentrate at work. And now you're noticing you rarely get that, or you might get that once in a blue moon. That's progress right there. Mood stability. Now, I know in perimenopause, peri and postmenopause, mood swings are one of the main symptoms that women experience. Do you notice that your mood's more regulated in the last few weeks or the last few months? The thing is, what we focus on tends to magnetize. So if you're only focusing on the weight scale, that's going to be the overarching thing, that's the only thing that you can see. But if you start to notice all these other measurements of success, your perspective is naturally going to shift, and you're going to open up and be like, wow, yeah, actually, you know what? I haven't felt hungry in like a few weeks, or I wake up with energy now. I haven't had that in years. Or, I used to get really terrible gut issues. I really struggled to, not get acid reflux, or I don't know, like just process my food. It was a real struggle to do that. I used to get tummy pains. And now my digestion is so much better. So it's noticing all these other measures of progress in your success. Do you feel more confident? Just asking yourself that question. Do you notice that when you go to a social event, you're less shy? You're not being afraid if there's someone taking photos around to get your photo taken. If someone asks you to try something new with them on the weekend, you're like, yeah, maybe I will go try that with you, as opposed to being like, oh, I can't do that. I'm not capable of that. Is your confidence? Are you noticing that your confidence has improved, even in just small ways? Is your self-talk and how you navigate situations improved? And this is a really powerful one that a lot of people overlook. Is the way you speak to yourself more healthier and more nurturing now than it was a few weeks or a few months or a few years ago? Maybe when you stepped on the scale and it showed you a number you didn't want to see, you would go into complete self-hatred mode, where you would just completely berate yourself, talk down to yourself, say things to yourself that you would never in a million years say to someone that you loved. And now, when you step on the scale and it's not showing you what you want, or maybe it's got nothing to do with the scale, maybe you miss a workout, or you go out for a meal and you know that you've overeaten. Maybe just the way you speak to yourself around that is with so much compassion, still with honesty, but with compassion, where you're like, cool, I had a really great time tonight. Sure, I probably had a little bit more than I'm a bit overfull right now. But I get to wake up tomorrow, I'm going to go for my walk, and I'm going to eat a nourishing breakfast, and I'm just going to continue with the rest of my day and the rest of my week. Or, if your boss asks you to stay back and you miss your workout, where you'd previously spiral into, oh my gosh, like I've messed up my workouts for the week now. This, like, how am I going to train myself? My body's going to rah, and you just go into the spiral. Maybe now you're kind of like, okay, cool. You pull out your calendar, you're like, I can get my workout in on Thursday morning this week instead of today. Or instead, when I get home, I'm just going to go for a short 20-minute walk. I can manage that. So it's just slightly changing how you talk to yourself and how you navigate situations that would have previously caused you to derail and to spiral. That is such a huge win. And if no one has told you yet and you're noticing that in your journey, I just want to applaud you. Like, take a moment to give yourself a pat on the back if you're noticing any of these things, because this is where it's at. These are the changes. And if you're not noticing these changes and you're only fixated on the scale, you're missing out on so many beautiful wins that you're experiencing right now. So a good question to ask yourself is, what would progress look and feel like if I couldn't use the scale? If weight scales didn't exist, if we lived in a world where the weight scales didn't exist, what would progress look and feel like for you? The second practical way to start to disconnect your worth from your weight is to use self-compassion as your accountability tool. I think Brené Brown said it best, but she said, when we don't know how to hold someone accountable, we use shame and guilt. There was some variation. I don't know if I'm quoting her exactly correctly, but it was something along those lines. It was we use guilt and shame when we don't know how to hold someone accountable. And the same is true for ourselves. If we don't know how to hold ourselves accountable, we will almost beat ourselves into submission, or use shame and guilt because we think that that is the best way to hold ourselves accountable. But actually, the research and the study shows that women who use self-compassion not only get better results, but they have longer lasting results. So self-compassion really is the way forward for you. And it's not about avoidance. It's not about, pretending that things are super great when they're not, and having that toxic positivity. It's about being able to honestly assess what's going on for you, but using self-compassion, using the lens of self-compassion to do that, rather than the lens of shame and guilt. So swapping guilt for curiosity is a really good one. So where you would once spiral and use guilt, I'm just going to give you a really clear example. You don't track your food for the weekend, okay? Let's just say you're tracking during the week, but you don't want to track during the weekend. There's more flexibility there. And you notice every Monday morning for the last 3 weeks, you're waking up feeling heavy and bloated, okay? The old version of you might have beat yourself up, might have been like, oh, you can never get this right. We're just going around in circles. We're never going to make progress. What's going on? Rah, 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 and going into that spiral. Instead of that, if the next time, like when you wake up on Monday morning, instead you go, okay, I've noticed that for the last 3 Mondays, I've woken up feeling really heavy and bloated. Why is that? Well, I don't seem to, care what I eat on the weekend. I seem to have way more flexibility. Maybe I'm overeating. Maybe I'm overdoing it. Okay, cool. Maybe, okay, so I'm tracking during the week, but I'm overdoing it on the weekend. What could I do to support myself so that I don't wake up heavy and bloated on Monday morning? Maybe I'll just eat a little bit less portions in my meals over the weekend. Or maybe I might track breakfast and lunch, but because I know my dinner's out throughout the weekend or out, I might not track dinner, but I'll track breakfast and lunch just to know I'm somewhat on track. And maybe when I go out for dinner, rather than just eating everything that's in front of me, I'm going to pick my hell yes options. And anything that's not a hell yes to me, I'm going to say no to. Do you see how that's different from beating yourself up with guilt and shame, which actually doesn't get you anywhere? And instead swapping the guilt for curiosity. Okay? Something to journal that will support yourself with this is, what was I feeling before that choice? So going back to the example of the weekend where, let's say you just hit the fuck it button. What was I feeling before that choice? So when I get to Friday evening, what do I feel? Relief that it's the weekend? Yeah. How do I feel about my food choices? Well, if I'm honest, I feel really deprived and restricted because for the whole week I'm trying to be good. So I feel like I have, my salads for lunch and I have a smoothie for breakfast and I kind of have a healthy dinner, but if I'm honest, I still feel hungry and I'm not really that satisfied with my food. So yeah, if I'm honest with myself, I'm feeling really like I am being really restrictive with my food during the week. So maybe that's impacting how I show up on my weekends then, because I've been so restrictive during the week that naturally I want to hit the fuck it button for the weekend. Right? So what was I feeling before the choice? And what do I actually need? Again, going back to that example, what do I actually need? Okay, if I'm feeling really restricted during the week, and that's causing me to want to hit the fuck it button on the weekend, maybe what I'll do is I'll create more space during the week to fill up my plate a little bit more with more nourishment, more protein, more fiber on my plate. So I have a more full meal that feels more satisfying to me. And maybe I'll prioritize creating more space every single day from Monday to Friday to have a treat that I really enjoy, that just brings me pure joy, whether that's a chocolate bar, whether that's some cheese and crackers, whether it's a packet of chips, so that by the time Friday rolls around, I'm not feeling deprived because I haven't put all these bad foods on a pedestal where I can only have them if I'm being social or if it's the weekend. And it takes away the ability to hit that fuck it button or to want to hit that fuck it button because I'm not depriving myself during the week. So what do I actually need? I actually need to have more flexibility with myself during the week so that I don't end up hitting the fuck it button on the weekend. So can you start to see how using self-compassion as your accountability tool not only is more effective in terms of self-navigation and self-leadership and therefore getting the results and the outcome you want, but it also helps you feel seen. It also gives yourself that understanding. It enables you to understand yourself better as opposed to just bypassing that and going straight to I'm messing up, this is not working for me, what am I doing wrong, what's wrong with me, blah, 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 right? So using self-compassion as your accountability tool, not shame. The third, celebrate identity shifts, not just body shifts. And this is really key because if you've known me for a while now and you know what I teach, you know that I'm all about identity shift because identity and habits kind of go into hand they're interchangeable. They're both connected so deeply. You can change your habits for a season, but if you don't change your identity that aligns with those habits won't stick. And this is not my opinion, this is a psychological fact. If you can want with all your being to want to be the healthy, lean, strong, confident woman that you are, that you can be, but in your mind, if you're telling yourself, I'm lazy, I hate exercise, I'm not really an exercise person, if those are the thoughts you're telling yourself, your identity is going to pull you back into the version of yourself that you're perceiving because you cannot outperform your self-image. Not a single person can outperform your self-image. And I used to be a person that used to think mindset stuff was woo-woo, right? It wasn't until I faced my own mindset barriers and realized how much they were holding me back from my health and fitness goals and my journey and becoming the woman that I wanted to become, that it really clicked for me. And I was like, oh, okay, no, this stuff isn't just woo-woo, this stuff's real. Like I need to actually pay attention to this. So celebrating your identity shifts is key because you shift the focus from the external validation of the weight scale showing you what you want, and instead you put the focus on the woman you're becoming and celebrating the woman you're becoming. I'm a woman who goes to the gym twice a week. I'm the woman that's teaching her kids how to love their bodies and how to exercise and how to create healthy habits. I'm the woman who, even when I don't feel like it, I get up and I go for my walk in the morning before work. And I'm creating that discipline for myself. I'm the woman that, even when I don't feel like it, I give my body the nourishment it needs because that's what my body deserves. I'm the woman that's creating self-respect for herself. Do you see how there's a shift there where you are celebrating yourself for who you are as opposed to an external metric for your progress? And I just want to share that fat loss is not about looking just looking different. It's about becoming someone different. As I mentioned before, you cannot outperform your self-image. And that is why one of the first modules in the academy is on taking ownership and having like a shift in that self-identity to start off your journey, because that is so key. So take a moment. If you've never done this, take a moment and just sit with some identity shifts that you've noticed in the last few weeks or the last few months and write those down. And when you're having a bad day, put them somewhere, whether it's on your phone or on a whiteboard somewhere, maybe somewhere on your desk at work, whatever it is, but put them somewhere where you can remind yourself, you can be reminded of who you're becoming and the progress you're making, especially on those bad days where, you're not feeling great, you have low mood or low energy. We all have bad days. Bad days are inevitable. But how you choose to show up on those bad days and how you choose to speak to yourself and navigate through those bad days, you can absolutely control and shift and change to feel better and to support yourself better. Number 4, you unfollow body shame triggers. So a really good example of this, because we live in a social media age, is paying attention to the type of content and the type of media you're consuming. right? So are you someone that is following, 50 accounts that are all kind of Fitspo accounts with girls with shredded six packs or eight packs, and you every time you see a post pop up from that account, you feel not good enough. You feel like you're missing the mark, right? And it's reinforcing the unhealthy limiting beliefs that you have, that you're not good enough, that you're not going to make it, that you're never going to be X, Y, and Z, or never going to have X, Y, and Z. Pay attention to that. I like to go through and I do what's called a social media audit every month or every few months, where I really pay attention to like accounts that I'm following, and how they make me feel. And if they don't feel aligned, I will unfollow. And I encourage you to do that. But there was a really famous quote, and I'm going to quote it wrong because I can't remember who quoted it. But I don't know who it was who said it, but it was, your diet isn't just what you eat. It's also what you feed your mind, and yourself. And I really believe that. I think if you're not paying attention to what your environment reinforces, the beliefs that your environment reinforces, and your environment can absolutely reinforce positive and healthy beliefs, but it can also be a source where it reinforces negative limiting beliefs if you're not careful and if you're not tuned into that. So following women that are evidence-based, who are strong, who are empowered, who, accounts that celebrate all body shapes, for example, is a really key one to normalize that, because as women, we come in all shapes and sizes, and that's beautiful. That should be celebrated. So just paying attention to that, paying attention to what you follow and what you consume from a media perspective, and from like a television, or from that perspective. And number 5, practice self-respect, not just self-improvement. Your body isn't a project, it's your partner. And truthfully, it's the only true home that you will have in this lifetime when you think about it. You might have grown up in a house that your parents have lived in to this day, and they've been there for 50 years. But the truth is, like, in that time, traveled overseas, you might have sold your place, you might have moved somewhere else. So really, like, our body is the only true home that we have in this lifetime. And so that's why, one of the key reasons why it's so crucial and important that we take care of our home. So wear clothes that fit and feel good for now, not when. Find clothes and wear clothes that fit and feel good for you right now, for where you're at right now. Don't try and squeeze yourself into something that you're not quite there yet, okay? Honor your body in that way. Speak to yourself like someone you deeply love. And I say this to my clients all the time. I get them to bring to mind like someone they really cherish and love. It could be their child, it could be their partner, could be a parent, could be a best friend, whoever it is. I can guarantee you, if you were to bring that person to mind right now, and you were to visualize yourself saying the things that you say to yourself that no one else hears you say to yourself, you would never in a million years say those things out loud to that person. So why do you accept that from yourself? Why do you allow yourself to tolerate that negative talk that you speak to yourself? Speak to yourself like someone you deeply love. And the third, set goals from a place of self-care, not self-punishment. I say this time and time again. If you want to not only lose the fat and keep it off, the habits and the behaviors that you are implementing right now, as well as the mindsets and the relationship that you're healing with yourself, your body, and food, is what is going to ensure that transformation lasts. So it is important that you pay some attention to the way you set goals, to what you're thinking and how you're thinking, and the way you speak to yourself, and being more mindful around that, and ensuring that you're giving yourself self-compassion and love and honesty. Again, you're not walking through life with rose-colored glasses. You're being honest with yourself, but you're being honest with yourself through the lens of self-compassion, not hate or shame. And these are the last 3 questions that I want to leave you with. If you're a woman watching this who's really struggled to separate her worth from her weight, maybe this is the first lesson that has even made you stop and think about that, then I highly recommend you to, whether you do this on a weekly basis or a daily basis, but to start to ask yourself these three questions. And the reason why I want you to ask yourself these questions more than once is because, like going to the gym and doing reps, we build muscle and strength through doing reps consistently. And the same is true for shifting our mindset and from healing the relationship we have with ourselves and our body and with food. It's not a once and done thing. It is a continuous thing. So these are the three questions I want you to start to ask yourself. So how has the scale shaped the way you see yourself, past or present? What would it look like to keep going without giving the scale so much power? And what belief do you want to rewrite today about your weight and your worth? And what action steps can you take from that, even if it's just one action step? So that's today's episode. If you've been enjoying these conversations and getting a lot of value from this podcast, the best way you can help it to grow is by subscribing and leaving a rating or a review. This show does not grow through ads or marketing, it grows through you. And I've had so much amazing feedback on these episodes, and I know that there are so many more women who need to hear these messages. When you subscribe, rate or review, or even share it with just one person, it makes so much difference. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening, and thank you for helping me get into the ears of the women who need this the most. I appreciate you. Until next time, take care.